The night Liam proposed, the sky looked like a screensaver, violet smears, a gold streak where the sun had slipped behind the city. He knelt by the riverwalk with a grin that always melted me, and a ruby ring that sparkled like something out of a magazine. People clapped, a violinist started playing, because of course he'd planned that. I cried. I said yes. He slid the ring onto my finger and whispered, "Wear it, always." I was a woman who believed in signals, songs on the radio at the right moment, repeating numbers on receipts, a stranger's kind word when I needed one. And for a while, that ring felt like a signal that I'd finally made a good choice in love. Liam was attentive. Tech-obsessed, yes, but attentive. He joked that his love language was Bluetooth. If it charged, synced, or had firmware updates, he was obsessed with it. He'd bought me the newest phone before I asked, configured a smart lock for my door, and replaced my coffee maker because bean temperature matters, babe. He said babe like a promise he planned to keep. The first time the ring buzzed, I thought it was a muscle twitch. I was in the office bathroom washing my hands after a long meeting. The vibration was subtle, a faint hum like an insect near glass. I held my breath. It stopped. I laughed at myself for being jumpy and went back to my desk. 2 nights later, it happened again. This time in the quiet of my bedroom. A small life inside the ring. A whisper of electricity against my skin. I tapped the ruby, and the buzz cut off instantly. "Hey," I asked casually the next day, over eggs in his tiny kitchen, "does my ring do something?" Liam blinked. He was slicing an avocado with the focus of a surgeon. "Do something?" "Like vibrate?" I said, trying not to sound weird. He chuckled. "Placebo ring. You're excited to get married, that's all." Then he leaned over and kissed my forehead. "Wear it, always." It would have ended there, me chalking it up to nerves, if not for the group chat. My friend Nora dropped a link to a podcast about tech abuse. The host described hidden trackers and gifts, smart speakers that listened, car apps used to control a partner's movements. It was meant to be a cautionary tale, but my stomach clenched. I stared at the ruby and heard a phantom hum. I told myself I was being dramatic. Liam didn't need to track me. He knew my schedule. We were engaged, planning a wedding that he approached like a project manager. Spreadsheets for budgets, apps for vendor timelines, a shared calendar he color-coded with terrifying enthusiasm. He was the first person who made planning feel like teamwork. The next weekend, when he went to visit his mentor in Palo Alto, another tech weekend, another trip, I took the ring to my cousin Aaron, who repairs guitars and somehow everything else. His workshop smelled like pine, glue, and electricity. "I just want to make sure it's, I don't know, broken," I said, half laughing. Aaron squinted under the magnifying lamp. "It's not broken," he muttered. "It's busy." My laugh died. "Busy?" He angled the ring so light caught on the inner band. "There's a micro solder here that doesn't belong on jewelry. I can feel a seam. It's not just a setting." He set it down gently, like it might jump. "I'm guessing a micro GPS, maybe a mic. Both are tiny now." I stared at the ring, the symbol of forever, feeling stupid and furious at the same time. He asked me to wear it, always. Aaron's face softened. "We can confirm without destroying it if you want. I'll open it from the underside, no scratches." I nodded. I wanted to throw up. The narration worked with a steady, patient motion. A few minutes later, he held up a speck of a device with a grin that wasn't joy. GPS and a tiny MEMS mic. There's a little chip here, likely storing data and transmitting when it hits a known network. He's not just tracking where you go, he's listening when he wants. I asked the question you're screaming at me from your sofa. Why would he do that? Aaron shrugged. You know him better than I do. I did, but apparently I didn't. I paid Aaron by stocking his fridge and promising him front row tickets to my future wedding that now felt imaginary. Then I drove home with the ring on the passenger seat, the ruby winking like a red eye. He was tracking me. He was listening. The urge to call and scream was overwhelming. Instead, I opened my laptop and took a breath. If Liam wanted a data trail, I'd give him one. I bought a prepaid phone and set it to ping from my apartment like I was having a cozy night in. Then I put the ring inside my gym bag with a cheap Bluetooth speaker, set to play a loop of silence, punctuated by random muffled noises, doors closing, indistinct chatter, the coffee machine hum. I set the bag by the window. If he were listening, he'd hear a boring evening at home. Meanwhile, I drove across town to a friend's place. Nora, from the podcast link, opened the door in sweatpants and fierce eyes. You look like a storm cloud, she said, pulling me in. I told her everything. She never said, "Are you sure?" That's why she's my friend. Instead, she said, "Okay, let's get receipts." We started with the ring's chip. Aaron had given me a USB adapter to read it. I plugged it in, and my screen bloomed with timestamps, coordinates, audio snippets labeled by date. The earliest file? Our engagement night. There was a note in a folder called Testing. He'd tested it on me after the proposal while I cried into his shoulder. My face went hot, then cold. I felt dirty in my own life. Nora tapped her keyboard with surgical precision, dropping pins into a map. Most were ordinary: work, home, yoga studio. But there was a cluster of identical timestamps every Thursday around 7 p.m., not near his office, not near our places, but at 2 hotels along the highway, swapping between them like a pattern. The files labeled from those times? Extra long. He'd left the mic on for hours. Who meets every Thursday at a mid-market hotel? Nora said, already knowing. I want to hear before I accuse, I said, and pressed play. At first, it was white noise. Then a door latch clicked, and his voice filled the speakers. Warm, lower than with me. I missed you, he said, the words like a punch. A woman laughed softly. Sheets rustled. They talked about a product launch, a dinner reservation he'd canceled with me, and her apartment hunting. Once you're free, she teased, like a joke they told too often. Then sounds I wish I could bleach from my memory. I sat with my palms pressed to my eyes while Nora muted the laptop. Okay, she whispered. Okay. I had proof, too much of it. I could have left then, packed a bag, sent a lawyer. But a quiet exit felt incomplete after so much surveillance. He had turned my life into an experiment. He had measured me. I wanted him to understand what data feels like when it turns on you. So I flipped the device. The narration reassembled the ring with a tiny switch Aaron had installed. The tracker still worked, but now, when it connected to Liam's network, his home Wi-Fi, his office, it would upload not just my coordinates, but a mirrored log of his. The ring's chip would push a file with the hotel addresses, the audio clips from his Thursday trysts, and a short script Nora wrote that would autoplay a recording when opened, his voice saying, "I missed you," on loop. "Cruel," Nora said, not fully disapproving. "Accurate," I said. I wore the ring, always. I acted normally. He acted normal too. Maybe because cheating men often believe in their own invincibility, the way gamblers believe in streaks. We went to tastings, tried on table linens. Who knew sheens could be so stressful? And he sent me links to minimalist vows he liked. On Thursday, he kissed my cheek and said he was pulling a late one with his team. "Get some sleep," I said sweetly. Then I drove to the second hotel and parked across the street. I watched him step out of an Uber with a woman in a camel coat. She was pretty in a soft catalog way. They moved with that choreographed ease of people who've done it many times. Glance around, quick laugh, straight to the elevators. My chest was a fist. I took 3 pictures. I didn't confront them. I waited. The next night, I booked dinner at his favorite restaurant, the one with the ridiculously tiny chairs and the sommelier who treated wine like a TED Talk. I wore the ring. I wore red lipstick. I packed a small envelope. He arrived glowing with charm. "You look..." He did a slow exhale. "Wow." "You too," I said, and handed him the envelope. "Open it before dessert." He grinned. "A present? You're spoiling me." We ordered. He talked about wedding menus and his mentor's new fund. I nodded, sipped, smiled. Then the dessert menu came, and I slid the envelope across the table. He opened it with the careless excitement of a boy at Christmas. Inside, a single page with an outlined map, 2 hotel addresses highlighted, a list of dates and times, and a QR code that led to a private drive containing the audio files, the ones recorded by the ring, his ring. "What is this?" he chuckled, then faltered. The color drained from his face as his eyes flicked over timestamps. He looked up, and I saw the exact second he recognized his own routine. "Play the first file," I said lightly, as if recommending a podcast. The narration scanned the code with his phone. The script Nora wrote did what it was built to do. His speaker whispered his own voice. "I missed you, again and again and again." He slapped the phone face down on the table. The sommelier pretended not to stare from 3 feet away. "You're misunderstanding," Liam said, but his voice had that thinness it gets when he lies. This is illegal, actually. You can't..." "Illegal?" I almost laughed. "Like planting a GPS and a mic in your fiancé's engagement ring? Like recording my girls' night, my office, my apartment?" I tilted my head. "I'm sure your mentor has thoughts on ethics." "I was protecting us," he said. "You've been so busy, and I just..." "With what? Yoga?" I asked. "Or breathing?" I leaned closer. "Say her name." His mouth worked silently. Then he reached out, an automatic motion to touch my hand where the ring glinted. I pulled back. "Here's how this is going to go," I said, as calmly as I've ever said anything. "You're going to take that file, send it to your own phone, And then you're going to Venmo Nora, I gave him the handle, for her time, because women don't do free labor anymore. You're going to text your mentor that the engagement is off and the reason why. And you're going to leave right now. He stared at me like I'd started speaking in another language. We can fix this, Liam, I said, softening for the ghost of the man I thought I knew. I wore your ring, always. I believed you. You made me a project. I'm not a project. I'm a person. He blinked fast. He looked younger suddenly. He stood, then sat, then stood again. He took the phone, sent the file, fumbled for his wallet, and left cash on the table like we were actors in a scene. He tried to say something else, but I lifted my hand, ruby flashing, and he closed his mouth. He left. The sommelier approached, setting down a glass gently. On the house, he murmured. Foreclosure. I laughed, then cried, then did the most adult thing I could think of. I finished my crème brûlée. After, I walked along the Riverwalk, the same place he'd proposed, and watched our city shimmer like a board full of status lights. I took off the ring. The ruby caught the last daylight. I pressed it against the railing, a hard hinge of metal and story, and felt the tiniest buzz, like a heartbeat admitting it was a machine all along. I placed it in a small envelope addressed to Aaron and slid it into a mailbox. In the week since, people have asked if I regret not smashing it with a hammer. Sometimes I do, but mostly I'm grateful I had the data, his data, my data, our data, to free me from a story someone else was writing for me. I changed my locks, I changed my Wi-Fi password, I changed my vocabulary. Fiancé became ex. Love became something I no longer confuse with surveillance. Trust became a boundary you can touch, not a monitor you can hide. I still believe in signals. They're just not what I thought. Sometimes a signal is a tiny vibration in a quiet room, a whisper that tells you to look closer. Sometimes it's your own voice playing back to you, reminding you who you are. And sometimes it's the click of an envelope dropping into a blue mailbox, the sound of a future choosing itself.